All right. Welcome to Hopeful Tribe, Travis. How are you?
I'm doing good this morning, Sue.
That's
Getting my coffee
good.
in my system, so starting to wake up.
Just so Hopeful Tribe can be extra impressed by our interview, I'm going to let people know we're recording at 5 a.m. Yes, we are. I really appreciate your getting up this early. And that's a good segue into your intro. Travis Goodman, LMFT, is the founder of Therapy4-Dads. And I want to share with you guys his YouTube channel. Also, he's on Instagram, and you can go to his website to read more about him, reclaiming the narrative of fatherhood one story at a time. I love it. That's amazing. Um, and I was just excited to have you on because I've had a lot of guests on, but I have not had any men. You are my first male guest.
Oh, good. I'm the
And
first one.
yeah, and another unusual thing is that you're my first male therapist on the show. And I think that because a lot of my viewers are male, it would be good to hear the perspective of a male therapist for a
Hmm.
change. You
Hmm.
know,
Yeah.
it's always these women talking, talking, talking.
Yeah.
I think you'll have a different perspective. So I'm happy you could come on, and I'm really grateful that you were willing to get up so early in the morning to do this.
Yeah. No, thank you. It's as I said, my show typically we were just talking before backstage, right? In the green room, we were talking.
Yes.
Um, yeah, it's funny when you're a parent of young children, you find times to hit record and do a show, usually in the wee hours of the morning at 5 or late at night. So it's this balance of when do I want to do a show? Is it before, like, at 5 in the morning, get up, or do the late night one? And so today we get to do the morning show, which is always exciting. It's always fun to do this.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think it's fun. I like early mornings. They're kind of quiet and calm, and
Hmm.
there's not so much going on. I like the morning hours.
Yeah, me too. I'm also a morning person myself. It's a peaceful time.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about yourself.
So, quick bio. As you said before, I'm an LMFT, and so I work in the Southern California area. Been practicing uh, as a therapist for I think 7 years now. Um, I work in both private practice setting um, with my own business, and I also work for kind of a bigger HMO, um,
Mm-hmm.
kind of hospital insurance provider full time in kind of their outpatient setting, just kind of providing therapy services for kind of literally whoever walks in the door, cradle to grave. I've seen as young as 3-year-olds come in and up into someone in their late 80s. So I've been working for them for 4.5 years, almost 5 years now, and then been private practice for 7. Um, and kind of see an array of people, uh, as you might think, coming in my doors to get help for mental health needs. Uh, a lot of anxiety, depression, and then some more severe cases, more severe mental illness I've worked with. And actually, before I worked at Kaiser, I worked in actually kind of a partial hospitalization program. So that's more intensive, more
Mm-hmm.
severe mental illness, and specifically with the geriatric community. So it was geriatric individuals
Oh.
with long-term severe mental illness, seeing people with schizophrenia and more severe manic bipolar on the more severe end, where they need a day program to be monitored and taught skills, and even people with kind of dementia, different types of dementia causing psychosis that are needing. They have the medical side taken care of, but we were kind of helping with the kind of psychiatric mental health side, trying to help them. And so I saw that for a couple of years, and that really opened my eyes to that world of, oh, this exists. And because you see stuff in movies when you're a kid, or even reading in a book in graduate school, and then you actually work with these individuals, and it's very fascinating. Actually, some of my favorite people I've ever worked with were in that geriatric severe mental illness day program, that you develop relationship with these people, and it's a different format because they're there every day, like 5 days a week, and you're there 5 days a week, and so you kind of get to know them and their families, and yeah, I enjoyed that almost 3 years working there, and it was a great experience, and I think rounded me out as a therapist. And sometimes I miss those days working with that population, but again, I think it really rounded me out as a therapist. So now I'll see some of that, but not as much, because we haven't, at least with the hospital insurance provider I work with now, we have like different tiers of providers, and we have some. So I don't work with that level of severity anymore within our at that job. We have other therapists and clinicians that's their dedicated job, and so I kind of work with more of the kind of low to middle severity of people coming in with kind of low grade depression, low grade anxiety, kind of moderate. And if anytime they get super severe, we have like another tier for more kind of support, family care, things like that. So it's a little more structured with where I work now, which is, I think, a good thing. So that's kind of a bit about me with my job. And I'm also a father of two, with a third on the way, and actually just celebrate 11 years married with my partner on Sunday, and my birthday was just on Sunday. So
Oh,
yeah.
happy birthday, happy anniversary. That's so cool.
Yeah. Thank you. It is. We got
Wow.
married on my birthday.
11
Yeah.
years.
11
That's
years married.
amazing. And really good strategy for remembering your anniversary. I like that.
Yeah. Pro tip, if you're pro tip, if you struggle with dates and remembering, if you get married on your birthday,
Yeah.
or that's your dating anniversary, or like the day you make, a long-term commitment to your partner, then you'll never forget. Because if you forget, then you're in trouble because of something else, not because of that.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. That's fun. Oh my gosh. So we're both Leos.
Yeah. Yes.
That's
Yes.
cool.
Both
That's very
Leos.
cool. My
And my
birthday's next week.
Oh, yes. So you are, well, I'm not going to guess. When are you?
I'm 55.
Okay. 55. Okay. And when
Yeah.
August
I'll
what?
be
When?
56 next week, August 17th.
August 17th. Okay. Nice.
Hmm.
No, that's two Leos. And my partner's a Leo. She's August
Oh,
13th. So
how
yeah.
fun.
Yeah. And both my boys are July. So I don't know. What is that again?
Is he?
July?
Yeah, so they're both cancers?
Yes. Both Cancers.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
Way cool. My most like easygoing kid is a Cancer.
Hmm.
And so generous and
Hmm.
loving. Like I'd come home from college when he was a toddler and he would ask me, "How was your day?" You know,
Oh, yeah.
like how many 2-year-olds ask that?
Yeah. So very caring. He's got that very empathetic, right? Caring, curious nature. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
very
That's super
sweet.
sweet. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. That's amazing. You have two Cancers, two Leos under
Hmm.
one roof.
And then December is our next. We're expecting our third in December. So
Oh,
whatever. Not super good with I only know mine because I know mine and my two sons, but I'm not sure what the December is. Mid-December. So maybe what's in mid-December.
Sagittarius.
Okay, so there you go.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
Sagittarius. So
Hmm.
I
My
guess
first
that'll.
granddaughter was born December 9th. That's the only reason I know.
Yeah, you kind of know the ones of the you learn those dependent upon the people in your life. Otherwise, you don't, what's February, what's this? You don't know unless you have someone in your life that unless you're totally into that. But yeah, so Sagittarius. So I'm assuming it'll be a good mix with two Leos and two Cancers. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know.
I think it'll be great.
Yeah,
I think it'll be great. And
yeah.
really, I think what's really amazing to me is that you have really embraced the whole fatherhood thing during a time when most young people I meet um, are really not thinking about having children.
Hmm.
You know, can you tell me what motivated you to just embrace fatherhood?
Well, that's a very good question, Sue. Well, I mean, I'm going to be 30. Oh, I am going to be, gosh, I just turned 37. So I may look younger than I am. I tend to get that. And so embracing fatherhood. So we had our first kid. Our oldest is four, and then our youngest is 2. So we actually wanted to have kids earlier.
Mm,
But it took us about 6 years to get pregnant the first time. So we had a long journey of getting pregnant and having our first child. And saw doctors, and at first we didn't. We just was trying to be natural, but then it started taking a couple years. Like, we should maybe just go get checked, see what's going on. So we did that, and yeah, that was a long journey. And I think initially we didn't talk to people about it the first couple years, just kind of just kept it in, um, and then realized we should probably start talking to people about it, because we're now starting to struggle a little bit with this idea of getting pregnant. And I've talked about this on my show before. We have an idea in life of how things should go, expectations of just this happens and then this happens and this happens and this. We just think it's just kind of a check the box type of a situation.
hmm
Um, and then you realize that not everything just works that fluidly or goes that smoothly. And for some people it does. It's just things just move and things just go. And other people like ourselves, specifically with getting pregnant and having our first child, it definitely wasn't smooth. We were one of many people that struggle with conceiving a child. And when we first were going through it, I think because we kept it in and weren't doing research, you can feel very alone, and hey, we're the only ones, and why is everyone else not struggling, and kind of get in your head a bit,
hmm
which I know that as a therapist. And it's funny, when we were going through this, even though I know talking to people is beneficial, when we started going through that, we just kind of didn't talk. And even though I know as a therapist,
Right, right.
trained clinician, that I know that, hey, talking to people is usually what we want to do to not feel so alone and kind of alone and isolative. So, and then it finally clicked. We started talking, and then that's when the relief came, because we had, there was a lot of pressure building and emotions that were kind of building up, and fears, and maybe even frustration, maybe even anger at times. When we started to share, realizing, oh my gosh, one, how relieving that was, and then two, meeting a lot of other couples and people that struggled, and it was like, okay, this is actually more common than people would think.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. And I think
um,
especially now when we tend to have children outside of our ideal reproductive years,
mhm, mhm,
women are most fertile from 16 to 21, right?
mhm. Yep.
But most people are not prepared to have children during that age range. So the
I
longer,
definitely was not.
right? The longer you wait, the
Right.
harder it is.
Mhm,
And I think that, like a lot of things in the society, we sort of take nature for granted,
mhm,
and it's not something you can just take for granted.
mm.
It's, you know, to be respected.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. It's
yeah.
something you don't think about, I
hmm
think, because why would you think about that? So it's kind of like I think that little naiveness and a little innocence of just, we don't think about taking certain things in nature for granted until you're faced with, when the nature part, it doesn't maybe go as you would think. And then you're faced with, oh, okay, now this is an issue. I have to really understand this or learn this, and then start to go through and process those different thoughts or emotions or beliefs or expectations or whatever you would think, and then kind of wrestle with those and overcome them or get stuck by them. And so, yeah, it's definitely a thing that I was forced to think about, and now I'm very well aware of that. It is not. It really is. It's a lot of people struggle. A lot of men and women, and it's for various reasons struggle with, especially conceiving, that again you don't think about until you're kind of now faced with it. It just kind of opened your eyes to that part of the world or that part of nature that if you haven't struggled, you wouldn't think about it. It's not a bad thing. It's not anyone's fault, but it's kind of that if it's not in your world, you're not forced to think about it. So.
And so, did you always want to be a dad, or is it something that developed at a certain point?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, coming, like quick, short snapshot of my life. I came from a family who parents, they got separated later in life. I was 17 when they separated. So starting senior of high school, they separated. Um, there was no fighting in the home, nothing that there was nothing I thought was wrong. It was kind of a little bit of a shock when they sat me and my brother down and said, "Oh, we're gonna get." In fact, I don't remember exactly what they said, but the gist was, we're gonna get separated, and my dad was gonna go, back in the military full time and move a couple hours, about an hour and a half south of where we're living at the time, and
Mm.
um, so that kind of back then, I was 17, well, 16 and turning 17. It was right before I turned, it was right before I turned 17. Because I was an August birthday. So I was a summer young, 17 my whole senior year where I had friends that were 8. So, so anyway, they separated and kind of were on and off again for a few years until they eventually finally finalized their divorce. About 5 years later, give or take. I was in my early 20s when they finalized. I might have been 22, I think, something like that. And so I remember at that time really struggling a bit with that. It was, which is interesting. That was 5 years, and I kind of, tuned it out a bit. And looking back, I was kind of coping with just the breakup of my family home. And at 22, my mom called me. I remember I was actually in a different graduate program at the time. She called me. I was like on a break, and she said, "Oh, and by the way, your father and I are finally, we're officially divorcing." It just kind of hit me for whatever reason hard. Didn't understand why, but it did. And I remember talking to my professor saying, I need to take a break. And so then I started seeing a therapist. Someone recommended me to see someone. Started seeing her weekly for about a year and a half, and started working through my family stuff and realized I had a lot of fear actually at the time of becoming a father, becoming a dad, and I had a lot of fear of replicating the same thing my parents did and be kind of making decisions like my dad or my mom. And so I worked through a lot of that fear and overcoming that and realizing, oh, that's not my reality. And I was kind of just struggling with my mom and dad's reality and kind of taking responsibility and ownership as if it's going to happen to me, I'm going to somehow automatically replicate the same narrative. And so I had a lot of fear that I worked through with my therapist and let that go and became free from it, which was very freeing. It was very freeing to kind of move past that. And even when I started dating initially, my partner now, wife now, I think when we started to get serious, a little bit of that kind of creeped up again in my head, like in the background, like a little bit of it, not as strong because I worked through so much of it. But even what I tell people, even in therapy now, sometimes you work through stuff, but it doesn't mean it's always gone.
Right.
It can still kind of creep back in. It's like, but now you have an awareness of what it is. And so you can kind of stop it and kind of get it out of your house, so to speak, before it kind of moves back in, because you're aware of its voice and what it does. And so I was able to kind of stop that right away. I actually did a couple check-in sessions with my therapist because by that time I wasn't seeing her regularly because I was doing great. But I'm like, I need to come in and see you. And we call them tune-up sessions, going for a tune-up and say, hey, this is coming up again. And she's like, oh yeah, this is it. And so I was like, oh, you're right. And I was able just to kind of get rid of it. And we did some even premarital with her and kind of work through, and she gave us some kind of good foundation to set us up for success. And we even talked about it then. So I think at that point, I knew I wanted to be a dad, but I know I wanted to finish school first. So because at the time I was in graduate school. When we got married, I just finished my second bachelor's and got accepted into a graduate school program. So we got married. We went on our honeymoon, and I was finishing my bachelor's. So when I got back from our honeymoon, I had to finish a language class, because for whatever reason they didn't take my language classes from high school and my previous undergrad. Who knows why? Don't know why. Um, Maybe they wanted more money. It was a private institution, so maybe they, maybe they
Yeah,
wanted more money. Neither here nor there. I finished
that's
it,
a whole
and then
nother interview.
it's a whole other interview. And then, and then I started my graduate program. That was that fall. Might have been that fall. Um, and so I knew I didn't want to have a kid at the time because I was working full time during the day and doing graduate school full time at night. So at that point, I knew mentally it's like, okay, I want to be a dad, but right now is not the time. I want to wait till I'm graduated from my graduate school and I'm not working full time during the day and doing school full time at night because you're kind of busy, right? And having a kid is quite a bit of work, and needing to be there. So I knew that at the end of me graduating from graduate school, that was kind of okay. This is when we're going to start, quote unquote, trying. And so that's when we started to I guess to try after I graduated from graduate school. But then that's when we got into our long journey of, oh, okay, this is now now we're hitting some bumps that we didn't anticipate. And so long story short, yes, I've always wanted to be a father, but I definitely had my fears along the way that I had to work through in therapy and kind of clear up some of my own fears and worries. Um, and yeah, now I'm a dad of two and wouldn't change it for the world. And I love being a dad. I love being a father. It's by far the hardest thing I've done and the most amazing, wonderful thing I've done. So it's definitely that combination of the two. And I've been stretched and grown so far beyond what I thought I'd be stretched and grown in, just having two kids and thinking you're patient, thinking you're strong, you're really patient, and then realizing at times, oh, I'm not as patient as I thought I might have been, and you know, working at that, and you know, letting go a lot of things, you know, letting go of control, realizing that you know your children are wonderful and unique in their own personalities, and seeing kind of how sometimes we can bump even at a young age of our personalities and making me grow as a man, as a father, and stretch myself, and also seeing just the joy of how we connect as father and sons. And so yeah, it's something that I think I've always wanted to be, but there are definitely some kind of hiccups along the way that I worked through. And that now I wouldn't change it for the world. I would never go back. I can't imagine my life now without my kids. It's kind of I can't. It's impossible for me to imagine it without. Although there are times, and I will admit that, you know, having a night away is like just a nice. It's a nice break of okay, having one night away every now and then with me and my partner of like okay, it's just us and kind of a little kind of date getaway for 24 hours. It kind of refreshes of us just connecting and you know more intentionally having that longer time because when you know when you're with your kids, they're 24/7 until they're sleeping. So you're on. There's no break as a parent, as I'm sure you remember, right? Really no break unless they're asleep, kind of a thing, or or you're
Yeah,
at the job.
I told you, but maybe not all of Hopeful Tribe knows. I have three biological sons, right? And I
Mhm.
had my first two in college, and my third one later on. But I went through college and grad school and worked with the two, and I remember the night that I came home from the hospital with my first baby. I had this enormous panic attack because it
Mm.
dawned on me that this was going to be 24 hours until at least he turned 18. You know, I guess it just hadn't really registered until I got home. And then I was like, oh my God, what did I do? You know, I feel like the enormity of the responsibility kind of comes to you in waves like that, you know? When you sign up to be a parent, it just, you can't know beforehand
Hmm.
what that feels like. You know what I mean?
I 100% agree. Yes. It doesn't really hit. It sinks in waves at times. Yes, it's you kind of know it. It's all you think you know it, right? I
Right.
think you're like, oh, I know it's busy. It's a lot of work, like mentally, but
Yeah.
until you experience it, it just hits. It sinks in a whole different
Yeah.
reality. Because you're right. You're now home with this infant,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh,
This
okay,
entirely dependent person,
yes,
and
entirely
you're
dependent
it,
person.
you
And
know,
you're right.
24 hours a day. And
You're there's no one checking on you. You're it. That's it.
yep.
Here you go. Um,
Scary. Of course, it probably was a little more scary for me because I was only I was 19 when I had my first.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would say, yeah, me at 19, I think I'd be a little more scared having my first child because we had our first child when I was 30. I'm 37. And now, you make me do math at 5 in the morning, Sue. 37 minus 4, I was like 33, just 32. So, yeah, making me do math. I think 32, turning 33 when we had our first. So a little more established, had a career. So yeah, 19, I'm trying to think, man, at 19, I would have been a little more nervous, a little more scared, a little more shocked, right, at 19. But here you are and your boys are doing great, right? You got 3 boys out
They're
of the house
amazing.
doing great. So
Yeah.
that's the other side of the coin, right? Is that you get to you're on that side and I'm on this side. So hey, any wisdom, pass it on, please. And you had 3 boys, so any wisdom, I'll take it all. I
Yeah, the boys
realize,
are the best, man.
yeah,
I
yeah,
I love them. I adopted a bunch of other kids along the
mm,
way because people kept giving me their kids, and I was
mm,
like, well, I guess I'll feed you.
oh,
Uh,
yeah,
and so I did raise some girls, but I really feel like boys are the easiest because I found with my boys, as long as I got them enough exercise every day,
mm,
they would sleep like rocks and not really caused me a lot of trouble, you know.
yeah,
So, just run them, you know?
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I'm sure over the years, Sue, I'll be jumping in and getting some wisdom here. You had 3
Yeah,
boys and I got 2, and we'll see what the third is come December. And so
right. I
I'll
can't
either
wait.
join the 3 boy tribe or the or the 2 boy 1 girl tribe. We'll see. Who knows? I don't know what's going to happen because we're waiting to find out at birth, which is what we did with our first 2. So that's a little more,
It's so
I
cool.
guess, old school. So
Yeah.
we're waiting to find out, which is a fun experience. But um, yeah, boys are, from what I've heard, boys when they're younger are more work, from what I've heard, and that's what we've experienced. But I heard boys as they get older, it gets a little more, hey, just run them, get them
Mhm.
active, and they sleep like a rock. But at this age, uh, our boys, my youngest is a little more of a daredevil, but I think that just might be his personality. I think he's going to be definitely the more risk taker. I mean, he climbs on our island. He tries to climb bookshelves. He's climbing into our sinks. Our
Mhm.
youngest, he has no fear, zero fear, like
Yeah.
not even a lick of fear, which I'm trying to instill fear. Like, hey, no, this is going to be like, we need to have some healthy fear here. Like,
Well,
we
but
need
does
to.
he hurt himself often?
He comes very. I mean, he. Yeah, I mean, they're all kids do a little bit. He's 2, so they're running around. They bump into each other, but they're both pretty
But like going to the
resilient.
ER hurt.
No,
Does he
no,
do that?
no, thankfully. But we've had
Okay.
my heart has been in the ER numerous times.
So here's a little tip for you as an
Thank you,
old boy mom.
thank you.
I actually got this from my first husband. I used to be like you, be very scared when my very athletic first child was doing all kinds of daredevil moves. And he started young. He was like 1 when he started doing crazy things. Like
Mm-hmm.
we had this gigantic hill in back of our house, and he would take his little, those little ride-on toys you can give to 1-year-olds. They're usually made of plastic. His
Oh yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
shaped like a fire engine. But
Yep.
I mean, they're cute and you can scoot around on them, but they're not really meant for rough use, right? So
Mhm.
he would take it up to this gigantic hill
Oh.
and then ride down, right?
Hmm.
And I was just terrified. But his dad cautioned me. He said, if you're scared, he's going to feel that.
Mhm.
And it might interfere with how much he trusts his body.
Mhm.
He really is, he's really learning about his body quickly, and he has some natural athletic ability. And if you trust that he knows what he's doing, he's going to be less likely to have, you know, accidents and
Mhm.
things like that. So
Mhm.
I decided to try it, whatever. I was brand new at this parenting thing, just trusting that he would know,
Yeah.
what his limits were. And,
Mhm.
never actually, that one, the most athletic one, never went to the ER.
Mhm.
Knock on wood, right?
Yep.
He's just turned 36, but
Yeah. Knock on wood. Yeah.
I'm still knocking on wood
Yeah.
because he's still super active. So,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. We've
yeah. I
never
mean,
been to the ER. Never been. So
yeah, I
again, knock
think,
on wood.
yeah,
There's been moments though.
I
So.
think that the really athletic ones,
Mhm.
they know what they're doing. You know?
Mm-hmm. I think so. It's surprising. I actually surprised, and I meant like a couple times because, when they're little, especially when they're young, learning to like walk. I mean, he was climbing stuff that I'm like, he doesn't have the. I mean, he has the balance, but it's just a couple times that I did catch him. Like there was a few times that I'm like, okay, because we have tile floor in our house, so
Uh huh.
it's more of like I was more afraid of the falling off of an island on the tile floor, like a one and
Hmm.
a half year old, because they don't know that if I fall, I'm gonna crack my skull. And so, thankfully, nothing happened. And then we're actually in the pool 2 days ago. We're in the pool, and I think because he trusts us so much that we're gonna be there. That's the
Uh
thing
huh.
is, he just runs and just leaps into the pool. But he,
Oh,
can't swim yet. But I'm like, okay, bud, wait for me to be here because he's so excited. So I'm like, wait so I can catch you because if I'm not there, you're going down. So it's those things because but part of that is what I do know is that I think part of why he has no fears because he knows he's safe with us, right? Um,
hmm.
that we are going to be there. That he fully in his little brain, his little 2-year-old brain knows that mom and dad are there. That we're going to catch him. That he's safe. That he can be fearless and just risk anything, and then we're going to be there. So I could always look at it from that perspective too. That he trusts us that much and feels that safe and confident that we're there. That he can take those risks, knowing that we're there. So that's another way I've seen it too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, when people ask me why I'm I'm glad that I became a mom, I always reference the spiritual growth that was possible
Mm,
because of it. I feel like it pushed me in ways that I probably wouldn't have been challenged had I not had children, just because it's such an intense process,
hmm
emotionally, spiritually, physically. It takes a lot um, to raise children. What do you feel like was the biggest selling point for you so far?
The biggest like selling point, meaning the most exciting part, or the
Yeah, yeah, the part you most appreciate about being a parent.
what I most appreciate is with my kids is just their kind of innate love for me. Just
Mm,
their they have these moments where we as parents we're modeling, right? It's a lot of mostly what we do is we model behaviors, we model um we're modeling how to manage emotions, modeling how to you know check on someone when they get hurt, like, hey bud, check on your brother when he falls down, like, but showing them, oh, this is what we do, this is how we check on people, or this is how we talk kindly, or what we do, because we're helping shape um, and teach skills to children, to people, about kind of, so really societal norms of how we interact with each other, and they also just watch us, right? They're like sponges. They watch how me and my partner engage, and they kind of model the behavior. And so y- y- now there's times when they just, my oldest comes up and just says
Spontaneously,
thank
or
you,
yeah.
spontaneously. I don't know why that was so hard. But spontaneously will come up and just say, Dad, you're beautiful. I love you. It just,
Oh.
so I just I mean, that's just like, okay, yep. Anything else in the world right now, that stress is gone. It just melts away.
Mm-hmm.
Just that innate, totally innocent love and care of just saying it and looking in your eyes and just, or giving you a hug just on their own. Um, that to me is like, yeah, this is part of why I do what I do. Love being a father is just, you get to have this depth of love that I can't say that's not experiencing prior to having kids. Like I thought I knew love even with my partner. It's a different type. It's this other intrinsic,
Yeah.
really deep love that you can't really explain until you have kids, and then it's like you feel it. It's hard to really put it to language, but it's more of this felt sense of, oh yeah, that's what this is. And even when it's been a hard day or a rough week or whatever, it's like they have these moments of just everything just goes. It's like, okay, yep, I'm melted, and this is why I'm a dad. And it's just this beautiful moment and sweet. And I'm trying to hold on to those, and those are just putting on my kind of memory bank, and just like, yep, I'm going to save this one, I'm going to save this one, I'm saving this moment. And yeah, so those are, I really appreciate those moments, are some of my favorite moments. Or just even just sitting with them and just reading books, and you know hugging them in the morning or at night, just remembering like these are things that I just love and appreciate when we have these times together, and have laughing together, wrestling together, um, just having just these moments. All these little moments in my head just flash by of just these times when we connect, through play, or just listening to their little, my oldest son's little stories. He tells you a story and it kind of makes sense, and it's just, but he's, he knows where he's going with the story, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to say here. I think I'm following. But in his mind, he's like, yes, you understand that? I'm like, nope, but I'm with you. I'm here. But it's just, it's amazing. I mean, I just appreciate really a lot of it, just and seeing how he's growing. I mean, he's only 4, and I'm looking forward to when they're 36 one day. But I also know that I want to make sure I'm trying to be as present as I can now and up until 36. That I want to make sure that I am as present as I can be throughout their lifespan. And I got a ways to go, thankfully, but trying to be mindful and, not be too busy in my life where I'm not able to be present to their lives. And that's one thing that, as I plan ahead and being intentional, is I want to make sure as they get older, is being very mindful of my busyness in work,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that my priorities continue to remain within my family first and children. And yeah, I understand that work, sometimes we have to do what we have to do sometimes, right? There's sometimes out of necessity,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes life is just, that's the reality, is certain things we have to sacrifice. But I really want to make sure that I'm able to have my kids and family be the priority regardless of finances or life, and making those sacrifices, and as best I can, being present to, as they get older, their likes, their dreams, their hopes, right? The stuff that they want to do, and be excited, because I do see a lot of that, when kids and families come to see me in therapy, is that parents get busy, and I think it's unintentional, and they miss their kids, unintentionally.
Yeah,
Um,
I feel like the only way you can spend a good amount of time with your kids in this society is to be very intentional and
mhm,
conscious about spending that time with them, because the way things are set up, there's really not enough time to have kids, much less spend time with them, you know?
mhm, definitely
It's
agree.
really unfortunate. And
Mhm,
I think that's why a lot of young people I talk to say they're not even thinking about having kids yet, you know?
mhm. Yeah.
which is
I
sad,
yeah.
like really sad to me because of how much, you know, having kids and raising kids has meant to me, you know.
Hmm.
I hate to think that people won't get to have that experience if they want it, you know?
Right. Yeah. If they want it is the key. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think society to some degree is not independent. I think it also could depend upon where you live. And I think there's some factors that play in there um, a bit, I would say.
Hmm.
Different barriers, I think, for children or depending on where you are, with it's financial barriers or depending on, because California, is pricey compared to some other states to live in. Um, And so I know a lot of people, at least I've talked to, tend to worry about the financial aspect of it. And I think when I first, before I had kids, I had a little bit of that fear of, okay, can I afford it? And which is interesting that you go there.
Hmm.
But I realized, you just make it work. You
Yeah.
know, you just kind of make it work, and you sacrifice certain things, and you realize, oh yeah, because I have kids now. I'm like, yeah, just make it work. I mean, with things we sacrifice, obviously. And I know as they get older, when they start, when they become older teenagers, to kind of make a tongue in cheek joke, but we'll be living at Costco, right? I mean, with they'll be, especially when they become teenagers, right? They'll be eating you through your home, and
Yep.
Costco probably every other day, just refill. So I know financially it's going to get more of a burden when they get older, as I'm sure you
Yep.
probably remember your boys in high school. It was probably just they were eating machines, right?
Yep.
And thinking, how am I going to afford to feed them? It's like, how do I do? Uh, but yeah, so I think a lot of people can worry about that, and society's unfortunately kind of, at least Southern California, and is pace. It's a fast pace, but I think it's a choice. I think to some degree we make a choice to either fall into that kind of societal, fast paced
Hmm.
life, like the Southern California life, and not just Southern California, but from my experience, that kind of Southern California, you need to have this home or this car, or this, all the stuff people get caught in, which is at the end of the day kind of meaningless in the end. But I know for some people, it's a priority. But it's really checking your ultimate priority, like what is most important to you, and what are you willing to sacrifice for in the end. And then I think if that's, at least for me, if that's your mindset, you will make the sacrifice needed for your family or for your kids, if that's what you choose to have, and you will make it work. Like, you just do it. Just, you do what you have to do. um yeah, so it's a lot of intentionality. And even with relationships with your partner, it's, are
Oh,
you
yeah.
are you intentional? And I do couples therapies as well, so it's kind of a, are you intentional, or are you stuck in autopilot, right?
Hmm.
Because people get stuck in autopilot because life gets busy. And if you let it, I mean, life, especially here, will continually, endlessly throw stuff at you. You need to care about this, or you need to be involved in this, or you need to be doing this, or it's endless. Like, life is, in companies and work, or they're always want to give you more, right? Hey,
Oh, yeah.
so because for them it's a business. So it's kind of, I think, what I often teach people in my practice, and even have to practice myself, is, what are your priorities? What do you ultimately want? So set your priorities, because they'll keep asking, life, people, the world, your job.
Mm-hmm.
There's an endless empty, a bottomless pit of what they'll require of you. They'll give as much as you give them. And so it really is setting some boundaries, some healthy boundaries, saying, okay, I'm going to say no here. And that's okay to say no to these things, and saying, I'm going to say no to these things because, I need time for my kids or for my partner, or I need to invest, and I need to be intentional with my relationships, whether it's a friendship, a partner, your spouse, your kids, that it does require that kind of intentionality. Otherwise, your time goes elsewhere, and it's
Hmm.
it gets sucked up quickly. There's only so much time in a day. Literally, and not to be cliche, but there really is. You only have so much time, and how do you want to choose to spend it?
Yeah. Well, I was having lunch with a friend recently, and she was like, "Oh, you do all these amazing things." And I was like, "No, I just live my purpose, you know? This is just what I want to do with my life, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I think life should be fun and fulfilling and full of really meaningful relationships and work. So
Mhm.
that's what I do, you
Yeah.
know? And I feel like when young people are setting up their adult lives, it's really often helpful to create a mission statement for yourself
Yeah.
so that you can make choices through that filter, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. I think it's a great advice, great wisdom. I love that mission statement for your life. So that's, you make choices based upon that filter, because the reality is you're making choices based upon a filter, whether you're aware of that filter or not,
Hmm.
right? That's the difference. Are you aware of the filter to which you choose to make decisions out of?
Yeah. And I mean, if you're happy with the mainstream values, then yeah, just, go for
Yeah.
it, right? Like,
Right. Yeah. You're
get as
right.
many choices you can, right?
Essentially, right. If that's your
uh,
thing, fine. That's great.
Buy the
Then
biggest
go for it.
house, whatever, but do
Right.
that,
Hmm.
like, because that's what's really important to you.
Right. Exactly. No, exactly. It's really knowing what you value most and what you prioritize, and then living out of that reality. Because some people, for them, that is. I'm like, that's great. If that's what you're aiming at, awesome. I'm not here to tell you otherwise. Just
Yeah.
know just be aware of what you're doing. Just have that awareness. Live intentionally, live mindfully, not mindlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. When you were in your 20s,
Hmm.
did you see yourself where you are now?
No,
That's so honest. I love it.
no. Well, and it depends on when in your 20s, right? Because if you say
Right, right.
if you say 20, no
Right,
clue.
right. I'm thinking early
You know,
20s,
yeah,
like
early
you're
20s,
you're
no, no,
just getting out of college and
no,
kind of stretching your
no,
no,
no.
no.
Lot changes. Thankfully, um, you know,
What did you think your 30s would be like
oh
when
gosh,
you were in your early 20s?
that's a good. If I'm honest, I didn't really know. I think early 20s. I think I was just.
Ah.
I think I was just. This is before I did. If I'm thinking of 20, before I did therapy, before. And you're young, you're still developing at 20, right? I mean, I'm still developing at 37, but
Mhm.
at 20, there's just so much changing. And, I was living in San Diego at the time, and which was great. But I was kind of focused just on I wasn't thinking about the future really. I was just kind of living in the moment, which is, there's some good to that. And, I don't want to say bad to that, but definitely a little bit of an immaturity about that to some degree. Um, because I wasn't thinking about 10 years down the road. I was just, hey, what are we doing today? What are we doing tomorrow? What are we doing this weekend? Making plans, like working and having fun. So there wasn't a lot of responsibility, a lot of like long-term thinking, I think. And again, at 20, I think that's, so to some degree, that's okay. That's developmentally appropriate. Like, we're not really thinking about super long-term things. I mean, to some degree, you kind of are. I mean, I think in the back of my mind, I was like, wanting a long-term relationship, wanting, a partner. So kind of like these ideas, but I was living just kind of more and having fun with my friends, and then as I was kind of getting older and started, kind of early 20s, kind of 22, did some therapy, started realizing some of my unhealthy patterns and things I needed to grow in, and some of my hurts, right? Because of therapy, I started to grow and mature rapidly in that, because I was doing a lot more intentional self-reflection and growth, and trying to like understand myself, right? Really kind of asking the questions and going deep. And so that really, for me, began to shift my thinking and open my eyes to 30s and 40s. And at the time, again, as I said earlier, I was in a different graduate program, so I actually went back to school after therapy and got my second bachelor's, and then got my master's. So um, because I was a little nervous to become a therapist. I had a lot of fear around money and, like, will I do it? And that's, again, at the core of me doing therapy. Some of my old fears came up, and I was wrestling with my therapist, working through some of these fears. Um, and then, as I worked through them, took the risk, and then the journey kind of continued. But yeah, at 20, 21. 22, I really didn't have an idea what 30 looked like. I think there's the box thing of like, oh, you're supposed to be this, or that kind of societal stuff. Like, you should have a home by then, or you should have your career fixed, these things that you think you should be doing. But then I realized you just gotta let go of the shoulds and kind of take life one day at a time, and again, figure out what is your priority and what you're aiming at, and then aim at it. But that came later. I felt like that was definitely not what I was thinking at 20.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I love this perspective. We're gonna have to do this again because, like, it's 6:00 already. Can you believe that?
Oh my gosh, it is 6:00. You're right.
And I still have like 10 questions at the top of my head that I want to ask you. So we'll do part 2 some other time, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Was there a final question you want to ask before we sign off?
Yeah, you know what I tend to ask at the end is, what gives you hope?
Yeah, I love these questions. These are great. I could talk about that for hours. What gives me hope? If I were to distill it down, these are nice, deep, philosophical, existential questions, which I could talk again for hours upon and have long conversations, because I love that type of stuff. I'm very much a deep thinker and deep reader on these topics. But if I were to distill it down simply for the purposes of this interview, this show, I think what gives me hope is knowing one day, as my children, and I'm saying children because I don't know what our third will be, my children one day will become, adults like myself. And one day may or may not have a quote unquote family, but they will become adults, and they will then make decisions. And my hope is that they will make decisions to continue to better the world in which we live, and continue to like do things for good and be a light, be a beacon of hope themselves, to help the world, to help others, to kind of be a world changer. That's my hope, is really in my children. My hope is that I will pass down what I've learned and the wisdom I've gained to them, to them to take that farther, far beyond what I've done, and to, again, just be a world changer, to be good, be, change for the better, and all that entails, and whatever their little passion is for, whatever world or sphere of influence they have, that they would be in that space, a beacon of hope themselves, a world changer themselves, someone doing for the good, working to improve our, relationships, or society, or economics, or, history, or the, biology, whatever it is that they love, whatever world that they, where they're going to have their sphere of influence, that they do for good. So that's my hope. My hope is to hear one day about what they do. And I'm actually excited for that. I'm excited for being 80, right? 90. If I, who knows how, maybe I'll live to 150, who knows what happens by then, but to be able to hear the impact they have, and the hope that they're going to become those people. Like that's my hope, is in the next generation, which is weird. Again, I didn't think about that when I was 20 at all. So just a perspective before kids, I never thought about that way. But now it's like, oh no, like this is my responsibility now as a father, as a man, is to, to do my best to raise my children, and to pass my wisdom and do everything so they then grow, and they then give themselves away to the world for the better. So that's my hope. Long-winded answer, but I was trying to give some context.
It's beautiful. I loved it. It reminded me of something my mom used to say when she was praying about us. She would always say, she would ask God to protect us, and she would always promise that we would be of service to humanity. Right? And I just thought that was really beautiful. So when I became a mom, I would use the same prayer. And
I love that.
And I feel like there's some people who say, do you really want to bring a kid into this world right now? And I say, if your intention is to bring in more people who want to help, then we need as many of those people as you can produce.
100%.
Bring them on, bring them on,
100%.
because we need more people who want to be of service to humanity. We're
Oh
really
yeah.
struggling right now,
Oh yeah.
and
Yeah.
the more helpers we have, the easier it's going to be for the rest of us.
Absolutely. That's great wisdom too. Yeah, we need more people for the, that want to better the world. That's what we need. We need more helpers, people that want to sacrifice for the greater good. And yeah, that's my hope is they see how me and my wife live, and that we model that behavior to them. We model that care for the world, like even our neighbors, and literally, I mean, our neighbors. And that's the other thing, just real quick, is that we show care to literally our neighbors and across the street. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to that they don't even know their neighbors. They don't even, there's no
Mm-hmm.
relationship. And so, literally our kids know our neighbors and say hi, and we're showing, how do
Huge.
we care, and we bring gifts over, like little food, sometimes we share food. And so even that, like showing them this is how we can start, is by having them begin now, and building in that kind of in their ethos of this is what we're meant to be. It's not just about ourselves, right? And it's about other people, other things, not just us. And if it's just about us, I think, and this is, I could be wrong, but if it's just about us, that's when we get into trouble, right? If it's just about
Oh,
our
yeah.
individual self, that's when we really get into trouble. So, yeah.
Yeah. But that's the whole, I think that's the whole journey that's going to save humanity
Hmm.
is decolonizing our minds and
Hmm.
realizing that, you know, it's not about the individual, you know?
Nope, it's not at all. It's not. It can't be, right? It can't be, and it has to be about other people, other causes. It has to be about your community and the greater community of the world. And obviously, depending on your influence, you're gonna. But I say start with start with your neighbor. Start
Yeah.
with literally your neighbor, like your next door neighbor. Start with getting to know them, you know, getting to know their story, getting to understand who they are, and then begin to go from there. That's I think you're spot on. And yeah, if that's your heart, if that's what you want, have kids, right? If you can have kids, raise kids or adopt kids, instill that heart, that ethos in them of, we want to be world changers, and loving the other, and sacrificing for the greater good of those around you, and giving of yourself. Because man, if everyone did that, if everyone was sacrificing, if
Right?
everyone, imagine the world we'd live in if we all took care of each other in that way, then everyone would be taken care of.
Yeah.
um because then no
Yeah.
one would be in need, because then we're all taking care of each other, right? That's the end goal, man.
Exactly.
So that's the end goal, and that's what I'm trying to teach them now. Is that's the end
Yeah.
goal? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, even if all you did was model kindness,
Hmm.
that would be huge, you know?
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. It
Such a
doesn't
big
even it's
change.
just small things. I've learned it doesn't have to be big gestures. It's just in the I've learned this from a lot of wisdom from some other people in my life, but it's in the small mundaneness, right?
Hmm.
It's in the kind of the drudgery, the day to day small moments that you model kindness, right? And not that you can't model in those big moments, but it's more about those small, everyday, seemingly insignificant moments
Hmm.
that you do that enough. And that's really how it's changed, is those day in and day out small moments, not that once a year, or again, not that that's bad, but it's really in those everyday moments, those everyday or ordinary moments of kindness, that your
Hmm.
children see, that, oh, because that's that repetition. They see it. Oh man, mom is always, I notice mom's always saying hi to everyone. She's always asking people what we're doing. She's always like, versus, oh, mom never talked to anybody, or dad never talked to anybody. They'd give once a year to some charity, but it was a check, right? Not that that's bad, but there's something to say to model the day, every single day, or the everyday ordinary moments of, we're actually modeling what we say. You know, we're practicing what we say we believe. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's that kind of that you can, you know, talk the talk, but you walk in the walk. It's just that everyday thing. So that's my hope as well, is that I model that to my kids in all in the ordinary things of life. And I want to make sure that I'm modeling what I say that I'm supposed to be modeling, that I'm actually following through with what I say, not just saying it, right? But, you know, uh, showing them with how I behave, not just what I say, and actually living with what I say and following through with what I say. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love it. So
Yeah.
much fun.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming
Yeah.
and getting up at the crack of dawn.
Hey, we both did it. We both, I think we get a badge now. Is there like a
Yeah,
badge
yeah.
that
There
we can
should be
put
a
somewhere,
badge.
like a 5 a.m. badge that we can
Yeah,
show?
definitely 5 a.m. interview badge.
Yeah, right.
I'll
We
make
should create
sure to
that. We gotta,
create one. Yeah,
right. I think it's a badge of honor. Like, you know, I feel like Boy Scouts or, you know, Girl Scouts. I need to sew that on somewhere. The 5
right.
a.m. badge, like, get it on there, right? People
You
need to know.
know, there's a lot to be said for positive reinforcement.